Ready to go. Okay, folks. This is the Marshfield Board of Public Works. Our meeting is at Tuesday, April 20th at 2021 at 6 p.m. at 6:05 p.m. Okay. Here is our agenda. Action items. Roll call vote required. Approval of open meeting minutes 3/8/21 and 3/22/21. Number 2, reconsider vote town declaration of emergency policy. Number 3, fee recommendation for mattress recycling. We have update on 965 Plain Street. 6 would be Marshfield Hills sidewalk status.
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Go ahead.
those are the discussion items I believe you're reviewing.
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion. Okay, my bad. Discussion items, I'll start again. Number 1 is update on 965 Plain Street. Number 2 would be Marshfield Hills sidewalk status. Number 3 is the Ocean Bluff riprap update. We have the superintendent's report. Our next meeting would be Monday, April 26, 2021, and that would be a town meeting. And that's it. Do I have a second?
Second, the agenda, but I would like discussion on item 2 for action items.
Okay, you want discussion for reconsider vote declaration of emergency policy?
Yes.
Is that what you want discussion? Oh, okay, let's have a discussion.
Okay. Well, I read all the information you provided to the board, sir, and at this time I am concerned that this is not an item on which we could get any kind of immediate action or response anyway prior to, say, annual town meeting or even town election. Secondly, in reading that policy, the information that I believe it was the ethics board put out, the operative word there is may. And I had a discussion with a gentleman with whom I was with today, who has extensive experience in municipal law, and in particular related to the town of Marshfield. I won't mention his name on the program here, but I asked his opinion, and basically it's the way that is worded, he believes that it would be maximum discretion exercised by the board reviewing what you're proposing, and therefore probably not taking any particular action, which to me renders that as basically a futile effort. And that's my discussion on the subject, which is why I really can't support trying to reconsider it at this time. I believe that it may be an item that we can use subsequent to the annual town meeting, particularly if we get the vote on the auditing modifications. That's my discussion.
Which I hope we do. Just a discussion to further on this. Last meeting, it was directed that these were for volunteers at the vaccination center.
Yep.
Okay. So I would like us just to consider that the employees would volunteer, but there might be at times an employee that, for whatever reason, does not want to volunteer. So I'd like just the option in there that if an employee wants to opt out of being a volunteer, as directed by either the superintendent or the consulting with the town administrator, they can do that. That's something I'd like to see, that we would support employees that for whatever reason, I doubt that many, if any, could opt out.
Based on that, what I guess then, rather than reconsidering the vote, it would be a case of proposing an amendment or an adjustment.
That's okay. Thank you for that. That's what I'm trying to do.
I would support someone drafting language. I would prefer to defer it to you, which would basically indicate that it has to be with willingness and whatever else may be there. We propose it as an amendment to the Board of Selectmen. I think before we send it to the Board of Selectmen, we should be considering sending it first to Town Council for his review to make sure the language is correct.
Okay, you want me to do that? I'll do that.
That would work for me, and then we probably should vote that we're adjusting it to amend the policy.
Okay, just for the employees.
Right.
might want to opt out. Bob, do you have any discussion on that?
Yes, I do. The policy said volunteer. Volunteer is volunteer. Do we need a definition of volunteer? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I can answer that. The way the policy is written is that the employee would be directed to be a volunteer. In other words, they don't have an option to refuse. And I'd like to see it that they would have an option to opt out. So,
I would have to revisit what the policy that we voted on before I want to go to an amendment.
well,
If I might just,
go ahead.
I can speak to that, Bob. The language is more or less configured as a reassignment with the agreement of the department head for the personnel to be reassigned. And, I think that needs some modification to basically indicate, while the department head, in the case of most of the other departments within town, answers to the Board of Selectmen, the department head in this case does not answer to the Board of Selectmen, but rather the Board of Public Works. And therefore, I think our concurrence for the reassignment should also happen.
So I think that we have an employee definition of what a volunteer is. Am I getting that right?
I believe that it's a modification to how the volunteer designation is executed and who has input to that action. The charter specifically states that we are in charge of those items that are public works. And it is our job to hire the superintendent who shall appoint such other assistants as he might need. That is the gist of the language. And in this case, we are bypassed on this. And I believe, under 99.9% of the time, we would act appropriately for the good of the town. There might be an exception where we have an issue that has to be taken care of. That would be a different animal.
Okay, I still want to reserve my rights until I see the whole package in the amendment. You want to put amendment 2? Oh, it should go through the board again before it goes to the selectmen.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna go to town council, then I'll just write an amendment.
We'll
Okay.
have an amendment. We'll pass on the amendment with such revisions as we might subject the chair's revision to, and then go forward with town council before we go forward to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
All right, thanks, Bob. Okay, let's get rid of that one.
I will second the agenda on that basis.
Well, someone should have pulled it.
Okay, board, please.
Polling the board, Clerk Shaughnessy,
yes, I'm good with the agenda.
Vice Chair Karen,
Yes, I'm good with the agenda.
Chairman Cusick.
Aye. Okay, let's start with the approval of open meeting minutes 3/8/21. Do we have a discussion on 3/8/21 on the minutes? I already read them myself, but go ahead.
I went through the minutes and I have, I'm satisfied with them. I have no comments today.
I do too. Bobby, have you any comments on 3/8/21?
No, I have no comments. I'm ready to accept the meeting minutes.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the open meeting minutes of 3/8/21. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All aboard.
Hold the board.
Polling the board, regarding the agenda, Clerk Shaughnessy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Carrier,
Yes.
Chairman Cusick.
Aye. Okay, 3/8/21 is passed. Now we have the minutes of 3/22/21. I've already read them. I have no problem with them.
Likewise.
Go ahead, Dave. Bobby, what about yourself?
Was I at that one?
No.
You were, I don't think you were in attendance on that one, was he?
Oh, part of
Okay,
it.
so I can't vote.
You
were part of it, yes.
He
You were there,
was.
Bob.
Yeah, you
I
were,
was?
He was
Okay.
late.
You were-
So my phone wasn't working that time.
but you did come in.
Yeah,
I think-
yeah.
Okay.
I think you came in on my speaker.
I have no problem with the 3:22 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, polling the board regarding the approval of minutes.
Make a motion.
Oh, sorry, it's aggressive now. Back off.
Back off there. Mr. Bowen.
I move we accept
You're
the
in our
minutes of
chambers.
March 22nd, 2021.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
So polling the board for approval of the minutes from the March 22nd, 2021 meeting. Clerk Shaughnessy,
Hi,
Vice Chair Carrier,
Yes.
Chairman Cusick.
Aye. Okay, those are passed. How you doing, Tommy?
Sorry. He's in for the update on.
Number three, we have the, this would be Paul. Hi, Paul. Tree recommendation for mattress recycling.
Your mic is off, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Is it on now?
You're
Yes.
on now, yep.
You can hear me. Thank you.
How you doing, Paul?
Pretty well, thanks.
Thanks.
And
We got Terrence Floyd. His sisters were not with us, where we should absolutely acknowledge Brittany Floyd over here from North Carolina. His sisters, Latonya.
Tom, can you mute your other one? You had to mute it.
Brown.
You're getting a lot of feedback.
Go ahead, Paul.
okay, thank you. The recommendation that was in the memo was the result of essentially follow-up research I did by contacting other towns, looking at their websites, and also discussing this with the business manager and Superintendent Tom Reynolds last week, I believe last Wednesday. And the $20 per item for a residential mattress, which means one that is either brought to the transfer station by a resident or would be picked up curbside. We'd have to work out the details of that, and then delivered to the transfer station for recycling. That's $20. This is consistent with what a number of our neighbors charge, including Wellesley, Mass. Wellesley is not a neighbor, but I did visit their facility. But it's equivalent to what Kingston charges. It's also what Cohasset charges. And this is irrespective of size. It's not. I don't feel it's a lot of extra work to try to distinguish on that. Commercial mattress would refer to an item would refer to something that's brought in on a clean out truck, and or a commercial truck of some sort. And again, we've continued to get a lot of them, on the order of 300 a month. In fact, 341 I think came in the month of March, which is extremely high. And the suggestion for making the fee $60 an item for one that's delivered that way is born to some, it's to dissuade the amount. It's to dissuade vendors from bringing them to us, because right now we're probably very cheap because we just charge by the weight. This is the tack that Wellesley, Mass. Took when they implemented their program about 6 or 8 months ago. They had a lot of commercial mattresses, and they did that just sort of as a deterrent, and it accomplished the goal for Wellesley. Don't really have anything further to add on this right now. I'll be certainly willing to, accept any questions, but.
Bob Shaughnessy has a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
When we talked about this last, the number was like somewhere around $25 to $28. What happened to the $25 to $28 on the study that was done before?
Yeah.
Well, I think the $25 to $28 could be supported by, if you just want to try to massage these numbers a little bit more. And depending on the vendor that was chosen, some would be a bit more costly. The issue I see that really is driving this for us and making it something that we have to do some thinking about, and it is, the enormous amount of commercial mattresses that we continue to receive. Again, it's a lot for Diane Diane Salami at the transfer station to handle them now as trash. Think of it as coming in at the rate of about 10 to 12 a day, probably on average. But once these if that number continues to come in and they have to be managed carefully and recycled and kept dry and put into containers and make sure the containers are emptied out by a vendor on a timely basis, it's going to be a significant burden. So so I guess if the board chooses to charge more for a residential mattress, 25 or 30, it could be supported. It could be supported. I'm just citing the fact that we haven't found our neighbors charging that much. Wellesley, in fact, charges nothing. They charge their residents nothing right now for mattresses, for residential mattresses, because they have a grant and the grant covers the cost. So that, again, was kind of a policy decision that they made.
So to continue that discussion, I'm in favor of having a separate number for the commercial. I like the idea of establishing a number that is the deterrent. $60 sounds reasonable from a commercial side. The question is on the residential side, we should have a number that is a net zero on the rest of the ratepayers. So my thought was, when we were looking at it before, a lot of the vendors were charging $25. So my position would be, whatever the number that the vendor is going to charge us, $20, $25, $28 is the number we should be charging the residents. And I do like the idea of having a deterrent number for commercial entities.
Thanks. The vendor that's been of the 4 vendors, and I think in the memo I mentioned, I've contacted all the vendors. I spoke with them all directly, and their pricing, and it's like any solid waste kind of or recyclable issue. Their cost is driven by, literally, it's a 2-part component. It's their cost plus it's their travel time and distance in getting to and from the origin, which would be Marshfield, to where their plant is. And in this case, the closest vendor is Green Mattress, and I believe they're in Middlebury, and they're 58 to 60 miles away. The other ones are in Gardner or I think Warwick, Rhode Island, or Lawrence, Mass. So they're farther, and they're costly. Their cost is at least as much for that reason, and it's just time and travel, largely. Plus, they're all businesses. They do have to make money, and they get that by disassembling these things and selling the recycled products. Green Mattress cited a price of $20 per item as a residential item. I got that in a phone call last week. We could work to verify that and firm it up. And that would be a pass-through cost. That would be a pass-through cost. So, that's, I think, fair. And they also are offering, and other vendors may do this, but they're also offering that $20 has their transportation costs just folded in. It's just one number for them, and they felt it's just easiest for them if it's done that way. And Green Mattress also does several towns kind of near Marshfield. So they said that the logistics afford, that this affords them flexibility, and affords us flexibility too. You might not have to wait until one of the containers is completely filled up. If they happen to be in the area, they could come by and take them. So, and the $20, I believe, applies to that offer, that arrangement. So.
Bob Shaws has a comment. Paul, does the box spring, is it $20 and the mattress is $20, so it's a total of $40?
Each is an item, and each is considered separately according to DEP. It's just an item, and they define, mattress, for purposes of the recycling, a box spring is considered a mattress, and it's the price per item. So if you have a mattress and a box spring to get rid of, it'd be $20 each or $40. So.
Okay, so I'm okay with having as a straight pass-through, and a separate number for the commercial. That's my position.
I have a question, Paul. Take care. One of the things I think, we're gonna have to have some certain rules prepared for particularly dealing with the commercial haulers. And I believe that what we need to do there is put in a requirement, since we're looking to have these as recyclable materials to the best of our ability. Cleanliness becomes an issue. If it's bad enough, they're not gonna wanna touch it because it contaminates their machinery and everything else. So I think we have to have a stricture that tells a commercial hauler that's coming in that it has to come in clean, meaning it's not piled in with a bunch of crappy stuff that he's hauled out of somebody else's house, to that effect. I personally would like to see the commercial fee at $75, which basically is our, I believe that's our half-ton charge now.
Yes. We can certainly do that. The information, again, I found from other towns is, and I'll just, everybody was somewhat apprehensive about starting in this. They didn't know how bad it would be. They thought it might be really kind of bad. The answer I got from a few of them was, if the mattress is really dirty, again, for this again applies mostly to just residential mattresses, because that's frankly what most people that's what most municipalities limit their acceptance of. I could certainly see that we could do this and make strictures of it, and then and just see if sure, we can certainly work on that language. It's and it shouldn't be hard to do. What most people have said is, if it's really dirty, just pull it out and it goes in the trash. There is a judgment call there, obviously, that is made. I think in the field, this is something that our folks that are going to be at the receiving end of this, the transfer station, are going to have to just kind of get a working flexibility in dealing with. But we will work on some language on that.
I believe that if you don't have specific language requiring the cleanliness factor, when it's a judgment call with a commercial hauler coming in, who's also probably weighing and paying the balance of the load, if it isn't clear black language to him, you're going to have issues and arguments, which the staff at the solid waste does not need to deal with. So I think the rules have to be ironclad.
We will develop language.
And again, I would like to see the commercial bumped up to 75. That will tend to incent people to come in themselves if they have the capability to do so. Well, that's
fine, thank you.
Further comment for Bob Shaughnessy?
Yes, Bob.
I agree with Dave. I would go with the 75. And also, when are we going to start this? I would like to see it start ASAP.
We had talked about a while back, we had talked about May 1st. That's essentially 10 days from now. It might be hard to get the logistics in place and the containers in place to start it that soon. Dan, I don't know if Tom is, Tom had mentioned when we spoke last week that I think he was going to inquire about the town buying some containers. I certainly don't know if what the status of that is. So that could be a determining factor right now in how soon we can start. And I will get in touch with Green Mattress tomorrow and begin that process of finding out if they can provide them to us as well. They certainly offer to. They would provide them to us at cost, at their cost, but they indicated that they have some, but these can be in somewhat short supply. So,
Paul, you were right, though. Tom did mention that he was hoping that we may have had a container on site. And if not, he was going to follow up to see if we could get our own container. I think that's the way he wanted to move forward.
I have a further comment from Dan.
I know.
Okay. My further comment, Paul, is I believe that, and this would go to Bob's position, I believe that we should institute just as quick as possible the commercial fee and requirement, but for the residents who have already paid, for the most part, all of their utility bills are rolling up to the point where they are. I believe that should start with the new fiscal year. That's my opinion on that. That we would have basically a two-tier implementation. First being the commercial, the second being the residents with the change in the fiscal year.
Tom Whalen has a comment.
Who has a comment?
Tom Whalen.
Tom, go right ahead.
You know, if you check with the area mattress companies, when you buy a new mattress, they'll take it out for fee. So if you double the town's fee, most people would opt to have the mattress company take these mattresses out of the town rather than bringing it to the dump.
Probably true. And again, the reason why, so there are ways, I mean, to disincentivize the commercial thing is to disincentivize the commercial flow, would have a kind of a twofold purpose. And one is simply to make the amount that our transfer station folks deal with a lot less. And two, since this will become a requirement, as far as we know, in October to recycle all of them that come in, the fewer of them that we have to deal with at all, the better off we would be.
Well, again, if you check with, there's probably 10 companies in the general area of Marshfield.
Yep.
I bought a mattress last year. It charged me $30 to take it out. I thought it was a bargain. It was a queen size mattress and box spring. $30 was cheap. So I opted to go with that. But again, if you made it $60, people, when they buy a mattress, I think they'll use those companies to get them out of there. And that would reduce your costs greatly.
Yeah.
Or I would like to comment on, and that is harkening back to my prior employment. Our solid waste personnel always like to have at least one or two mattresses available periodically. They were great brooms for wiping down the tipping floor.
And they continue to be great brooms for that.
So seriously, and the bottom line comes down that you want to have, it's okay to have a few of the residentials in, and I still think we need a fee there for residential that is reasonable. For example, I will probably be cleaning out some mattresses circa 2 years from now because I'm downsizing and getting out of the house. And I'm not going to be buying a new mattress for rooms that aren't going to be occupied anymore. And you're going to have more than one person like that out there.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question too.
Mr. Cusick has a question.
Sure.
I share.
Well, if we have a vehicle that comes in for not for a clean out, but a large vehicle that's going to pay and throw, and it's has mattresses there, a number of them, say 10 or whatever. So what do? Do they first go down to the cargo and put the mattresses there and then get weighed? How does that work?
You mean if they had,
Yeah,
they need to do a weigh-in pay as well as dispose of mattresses?
Yeah.
They would have to be in a situation.
So we got to think about that because.
Well, that's why I would want to have the stipulation that the mattress has to come in and clean, because that's going to incent somebody to run the truck up just to get rid of the mattresses, then go back and do a pickup at the place for the further cleanup.
Mm-hmm. When the mattresses come, my understanding is they've been coming in on flatbed trucks. Perhaps not only that way, but certainly there have been instances of that. And to my knowledge, this began sort of to be a recognizable handling problem last summer. And certainly if you get a flatbed truck that's just full of these things, I mean, that's the only thing the particular vendor has been doing is focusing on collecting these. So it comes in, right now as just a weigh and pay thing where, it's weighed in and it's weighed going out and the load is determined. And the cost is, charged to the vendor based on what the load weighed. Diane has been, the folks at Transfer have been keeping track of them and counting them since at our request, just so we have a handle on them. But that's how they're handled now. And
Okay, Paul. I didn't know that they were mostly coming in on a flatbed truck. It's probably the vendors that are charging the residents $35 to take it away, and then they dump it for free.
Right.
So we gotta really work on this and straighten this out. What would be the next?
I guess we could. We want to make a motion instituting the commercial as of May 1.
Yeah.
And a motion to institute the residential charges on the 20th. The only hitch would be, I'll defer to James here, the implementation by the Solid Waste Transfer Department. How do you think, do you think logistically, do we need to move to June 1 to give a chance to get set up?
I would, plus you're gonna have to give contractors notice too, of how they're gonna be bringing them in and stuff like that.
So I guess the motion would be that we institute the commercial rate at $75 on June 1 and the residential rate at $20 on July 1.
I'm fine with that. I'll second that. We have discussion, Bob. You want to discuss that?
As long as, my only caveat is that $20, if that's what Green is going to charge. If Green's going to charge something higher, then the numbers should be higher.
Well, obviously, Paul could handle that and get a firm.
And that's a good reason to defer it to the beginning of the next fiscal year, which a lot of these companies operate on as well, and will have a better handle on their expenses.
So I would amend the vote to be that the residential could start on July 1st at a rate that is at no cost to the town from the vendor.
All right, that's acceptable. I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion on the floor, if I will sum it up, is that we will be implementing a net zero cost to the operation of solid waste for residential unit mattresses delivered to the site by the resident or through some arrangement on curbside pickup. And then a $75 commercial unit rate, that rate for the residents to take effect on July 1, and a $75 commercial rate that will take effect on June 1.
That's good. I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Poll the board, please.
Polling the board, Clerk Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Carrier,
Aye.
Chairman Cusick,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful analysis during this meeting. So
That was a good report, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job, Paul.
thanks.
Hey, folks.
And thank you for your comments, Mr. Whalen.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, we're on to discussion. Update of 965 Plain Street. I believe that would be Vice Chair, Mr. Carey.
Yeah, 965 Plain Street, and I will defer some of it to James Kent, our Deputy Superintendent for Operations, to describe the work that's been going on out in the area in which the new building will be constructed. We have had a subsequent meeting and actually a meeting for the public last Wednesday. And at that time, additional details of the building were discussed, and most prominently, the installation of photovoltaics or solar panels, of which there would be a unit mounted on the equipment maintenance garage of the new building, and also carports that would be constructed in the current paved area where we are storing all of our vehicles and temporary trailers. We have some questions that will be discussed tomorrow here at the site on that subject, and that includes proposing that both the transformer and battery bank that is part of this system will be relocated from adjacent to the new building over to more or less where we have our current temporary office trailer set up. One of the solar panels has been proposed by the superintendent to be reduced in size and also moved and located over where we are now parking for the citizens that come into the office. And that seems to be a good proposal, but we have to get that concurred with both from Weston and Sampson, which is already indicated they're in some agreement with this, and also with the people that are proposing the photovoltaics. Otherwise, we are looking at hitting the street with the specifications for bid for the construction in June, and hopefully wood and construction to start in August on the new building. That is the reach schedule right now. And I will let Mr. Kent give an update on the work that is taking place today.
All right, out back here, we've been stripping off the topsoil and hauling that out so we can get down to our sandy grade to see how much fill we're gonna need for out back, where there is a slight hole that we're filling in and compacting it. Weston and Sampson has had a gentleman here to watch us. And right now, that's all we've got done so far.
I will add to that there's been a good bit of excavating, carting, and bulldozing that has gone on over the last week, and with good progress in my eyeball.
Yes.
Looks good, Jimmy. Thank
They're
you.
getting there. They're getting there.
Thank you for that.
That is the discussion on
That is the
965.
report. Okay.
That's it.
Unless you have something to add, Dan?
Bobby, you
not
got
know.
any comments on that?
Huh?
Let's see if Bobby has.
Yep.
it. Bob?
I have no comments on it. I think Dave and the whole crew are doing a great job.
Thank you,
Thank
Bob.
you.
And there's a
Any of the
weekly-
audience have
weekly,
any comments? Okay, seeing no comments?
involvement,
Thank you,
yeah.
Jimmy.
Community can log on weekly.
It's every other weekend. That's a good point that the Deputy Superintendent for Business has just raised, Mr. Bowen, and that is, I believe it is, we have bi-weekly scheduled public,
Public
reviews,
hearings.
meetings in which, if the public has a question, they can come in. And the next one would be, I believe, a week from tomorrow. However, that could be impacted by whatever happens at town meeting starting on Monday night if for some reason we go longer.
Right.
That will be scheduled and available on the town's website as it is for the police department now.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dan.
On to number 3, the Ocean Bluff.
No, number 2, we haven't done the hillside.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's Tommy. I almost left you out, Tommy. Marshfield Hill sidewalk status.
Okay, I will, having said on this, now again, we'll get some supplementary assistance from Mr. Kent here, but, and also from the town engineer, but we have had environmental partners' final plans presented to us. We're going forward with them. Today, is it Barnes?
Yeah, mine was-
Barnes Tree was up, and they were surveying the tree work that would need to be done to clear away from the 10-foot radius that we're not allowed to work in around the power lines for Eversource. And they will be getting back to Tom. They were in the area doing work for Eversource as well as, I believe, a little in the cemetery, correct? Yeah. And so that's where that sits on that. We are going forward with contractors that we have who bid an open bid work for all of this kind of work that's associated with doing the sidewalks. And they are chasing materials as is engineering and working forward to begin work as soon as possible.
Yeah, the other day I had a couple tree companies up there to give us quotes for taking some of them big trees down that aren't in the wires. So I'm just waiting to get quotes back for that.
So we're moving forward with getting ready for tree removal first and then proceeding on the demo of the existing sidewalks and commencing the work to pave in the new ones. Rod, you have anything to add to that?
We are tracing material, granite. We got the curve data from Environmental Partners Group, and we're trying to locate and get quotes on the granite.
Yeah. There is going to be granite curbing that's installed, and it's the issue is it's radius curbing, if I recall correctly, and that becomes an issue for lead time, just so people are aware of that. But we are moving forward as quickly as logistics will allow, as well as getting ourselves past the tree work.
That sounds good. Long overdue. Tommy, you have any comments?
No, I don't. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Hearing no comments, let's move on to the next Ocean Bluff item. Yep, Ocean Bluff riprap update. So I thought Tom might have take that, but maybe Rod, can you update us on that?
I could say that we have not heard from EEA with regard to the grant application we had filed back in late February. I think it was the 26th. We did get a response from GEI, some of the questions that were presented to them.
You use the full words rather than acronym.
Sure. Yeah, I don't even know what they stand for. GEI to me. Yeah, I can't.
Continue, just continue, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, GZA, GEI, EPG.
Well, ZBA is zoning board of appeals, isn't it?
Continue, right?
Okay. So yes, we got some answers to the questions that were asked by the Ocean Bluff Association. They were, it took them several months to get back to us. I don't know why it took so long, because it doesn't look like they were too heavy lifting. I think in general, they basically, the basic question was the shelf, how is it gonna affect the waves? I could read through the questions if you wanted and responses, it's several pages. But I think in general, the configuration that was proposed with the shelf would not, in their opinion, induce any more of an impact to the to the residents up there. In fact, in their opinion, based on what they're proposing, what you have is more of an average slope and a lesser of an average slope. In other words, if you constructed the slope, you would the less of the slope, the less of the impact. And so they don't really think that the configuration with that bench is going to be a problem. We suggested the bench so that we could get access and get our equipment up there above the high tide line for repairs, because that's our problem right now. We can't repair the slope, and it's very costly to track the crane out there, and by the time you get out there, you got to turn around and come back. So, if we could build a shelf that was above the high watermark, then in good weather conditions, we can get the top and the bottom. And sometimes, in fact, we could use a smaller machine, something that that we might have in house or that we could easily get. So that was basically the major question. There were some other questions in here, but those are the ones I thought were.
Right, if I can interrupt you for a minute. Sure. Has that been shared with the Ocean Bluff Association? That's it. The responses, have they been shared with them already?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
Tom sent them on Friday.
Okay.
Sent them on Friday and sent them on Friday.
Do you have any questions from, Bobby, do you have any questions before I go to the audience, or Dave, next?
I have no questions.
No questions.
I have no comments.
All right, thanks, Bob. Okay, let's go to the audience. Is that you, Dave, up there?
Yes, it is.
Hi, how you doing? Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We appreciate the time you're taking to listen to us tonight. And actually, I've only got very few questions, which is good. Thank you first for getting the answers to us from GEI. We had a lot of questions there, and we do appreciate the time and the effort it took to get those answers from all the parties involved. Half of those questions had to do with an outcropping building or whatever out in the ocean. We understand that really isn't an option, but we do thank you all for all those questions answered. Last week, after polling all of our members and the board of directors, we have just several questions regarding more of the funds appropriated toward the design of the revetment that hopefully you can clarify for us. It's only, I think I've got 4 questions total. The first question really is 3-part. And again, I think we're all steering, or you are steering because you drive the car here. You're steering to option 4 or 5, I think, regarding the revetment with the service road, so to speak, on it, service shelf on it. And I think everybody on our membership, I won't say everybody, but most of us agree that in fact, that does make sense. Question. We know that the application has been submitted to the state authorities for the design. But since Article 4 at the upcoming town meeting is asking to change the funds from the design swapped over to the emergency repairs on the revetment, what happens if the state doesn't approve the funds for the design? And I'm just going to go straight forward with 3 quick questions. Where would we stand regarding available funds for the design then, if that in fact Article 4 is agreed upon? Would we have to go back to town meeting? As you know, was a major hurdle the first time. If approved as written, will those funds still be able to be used for the design, or are they now locked into strictly emergency repairs? And lastly, if in fact they are locked in, can or should we restate that Article 4 to approve any leftover funds for emergency repair and have the safety net in case the design funds aren't approved?
So I can't answer that, but I guess the question I would have both between Rod and Dan would be, do we have any additional outstanding seawall design funding other than that 314 at this time?
We have money that was authorized for seawalls. Right now, we've got it pigeonholed for Brent Rock. The repairs for the Riley storm damage, the remaining repairs, but we haven't advanced.
Was that a matching fund for support from FEMA?
That was not matching funds. Those were just
Our own.
there was just the remaining damage that hadn't been repaired, and we were moving ahead with the design on that. There's $2 million that hasn't been borrowed yet, but it was slated for Brant Rock, and we had submitted a grant application for construction of Brant Rock Phase 2. With the money potentially coming down from feds, we thought that we would apply for it and be in the queue. I don't know when they're going to tell us about the awards. I was told that we would hear from the design grant, which is the Ocean Bluff application, shortly. Within like a month. But that's the only word I got. That was from our consultant saying they thought that it would be coming in shortly. As far as answering all those questions, I don't know where to go with that. I mean, all of a sudden, they switch gears a little bit on the money that was borrowed, the 350 that was borrowed for the design. We spent, I think, 40, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And the remaining funds, I believe, were subject to the Article 4, was it?
Yeah, it's in Article 4 of the STM, which is the diversion, rededicating it from revetment design for emergency repairs for the Ocean Bluff seawall. And I believe that was not so much, that was for future expenditure, correct or wrong?
It was thought that we would be better off having money for emergency
In
repairs.
case something came up.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know how you want to move on that. That wasn't really my
Yeah.
decision.
No, I know it wasn't.
Really, all the seawall money is set aside for specific projects.
Right.
And the idea is put that emergency fund aside in
Right.
case something does come up along the revetment.
I don't know if you caught that, sir?
I got most of it, John. Yes, again, the question was, and maybe you answered it, rather a little difficult on my end. I'm a little hard of hearing as well, so my apologies. But so if we use that money for emergency repairs, and the state does not approve the design, the funding for the design, where are we as far as where do we go from here with a new design, with a design, the funding for it? Will we be able to use that money still if we need to? We're talking a couple of months out, as I understand it, and I think Rod just reiterated that we may get an answer in June or July. That's the understanding I got.
The answer I guess I would provide, and you can supplement me, Mr. Kennedy, or Rod, whoever it's appropriate.
Sure.
Harking back to previous sins in another life, so to speak. The situation you have here is the 314 is there. It should not be used until we actually had an emergency, in which case we probably would have taken that action under an order from a judgment from town council or the board of selectmen declaring an emergency anyway. So the idea of having it there is an expedited situation. If it's not used, and the grant does not come through, come the fall STM, it could be rededicated if need be.
Okay, would that take a town meeting vote to do
That
that,
would
John?
take the town, well, basically, yes, because it's being moved here. Now,
Yeah.
town meeting gets to decide. This is an article proposed. So if the majority of citizens at town meeting say, no, we don't want to do that,
Mhm.
then it doesn't happen, and that item drops out of the 314, and the $915,000 will be reduced by that 314 at the bottom line of that article. That would be the
Yeah.
procedure at town meeting. So, you get a bite at the apple at the STM on it if you're, as a group, you don't agree with the way it's proceeding.
Sure. I mean, I think we all understand that it's going to take several years to even get this whole ball rolling. And the wall definitely is not going to make it through that part of it,
Yeah.
which is one of our last questions. But so yes, we're for what the article says. And I'm speaking for myself, but I think most of the board, I won't say for the whole membership, because we're going to need funds to do something there. We know that. Our big question was, will we have to roll the ball back all the way again for funding for a new design? And that was the real question. We really don't have an answer. It's sort of, yeah, if there's money left over at that point, we'll be able to bring it back over via town meeting. Yes.
We're looking for a safety net.
Yeah, the one thing I would add in addition to that is, we don't know, for example, the state line of loans that is available for seawalls and waterways. We don't know how much money there is going to be under the new fiscal year. That budget is still making its way, with amendments to the governor's desk. So that is another alternative, although I know right now, from a town administration and the financial side of things, they're dead averse at this moment because of, obviously, the new construction taking place here and at the police department, as well as the other capital projects that are out there already. But what I can say is, as this board has generally done all along, I think I can speak on behalf of my chair, and that would be, and my fellow board member, Mr. Shaughnessy, that the bottom line is we have always tried to do what needed to be done for seawalls. And we did it for many years before the Board of Selectmen ever got on board with us. And it took Surf Avenue seawall falling down for that to happen.
We thank you.
So
All right.
Another possibility, I think, to add on to
Go ahead.
So the $2 million that hasn't been borrowed yet, but we were pigeonholed for Great Rock Phase 2. If we don't get the grant, then that money could be made available for seawall design. If we get the grant and they don't give us enough money to make it worth our while, then the town may not accept the grant. Sometimes they give you a grant, but it's all low interest loans and they don't give you enough cash to make it worthwhile. And so if that was the case, I'm sure that maybe the town treasurer collector would probably land on the side of, maybe we don't want to accept this grant because it's not a win-win for us. So there is a possibility that some of those funds that we were pigeonholing for the Grant Rock Phase 2 could be used if we got certain news. If they came back with a sizable amount of money towards the Grant Rock Phase 2, then we probably would move forward with it. At least that's what we would recommend.
Thank you, Red.
Okay.
Any more questions, Dave?
Yeah, I've got two more questions, that's all. And again, thank you for your forbearance. There's been mention that there was some leftover funds from the Foster Ave project. And somewhere in my mind, it was $30,000 or $40,000. Is that money available, since I guess the Foster Ave project is finished now, is that money available to be used for any kind of repairs?
I don't know. I would say that if it was, we haven't closed out Foster Ave yet. They still have to go back and finish up. They've got some the steel stairs structures. There's some retainage left on that, but we haven't closed it out yet. But when that's closed out, there might be some funds left. I'll check with Dan on that.
Yeah, there could be funds left.
There could be, but the treasurer might want to use it to pay down the debt. I don't know. I'd have to.
Yeah. Well, it's a possibility.
Possibility, yeah.
What money needed for the.
What I would say to you, sir, is that should we have the available funds at the end of Foster Avenue, that is when you folks need to chime in, not to us, but to the Board of Selectmen.
Sure.
With the idea that you don't want the treasurer collector and the town administrator making an arbitrary decision on economics alone.
Hey, thank you, John, and thank you, Rod. We're talking about different alternatives or whatever. I've only got two more questions now. Is the board, the DPW, favoring any particular alternative at this point? I'm getting those questions constantly. I think you're talking either 4 or 5. Again, we don't even have the funds available for the design at this point, but are we leaning towards more than likely 4 or 5? 4 or 5 being one had the shelf, the working shelf. The next one had the wall behind that whole revetment, as I recall. Are those the two we're leaning toward, that you're leaning towards?
I think.
This is strictly informational
Those
purposes.
are the options.
But I thought, if memory serves me from the prior meetings, I believe we were waiting to get the responses to the questions that the citizens had, which you said they sent them out Friday, and I have not seen them.
Okay, I'll get them.
And I don't know that John has either, or Bob has. So
Okay.
we can't comment because you've got information ahead of us right now.
That's a first, right? Thank you again.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, and lastly, you see behind me the beach, if you will, after the revetment was repaired temporarily several months ago. If any of you have been there recently, you'll see that from pretty much Stella Maris down again has all completely fallen down again.
Right.
Theory only is before Stella Maris, including my area, between the high 4s and the low 5s. They brought in the big, heavy, strong boulders, so to speak. That seems to not have touched, that hasn't moved at all. Where they took the existing rock, and I won't call them boulders because they were rock, beyond us, somewhere around, I'm going to guess around the 520s area, just before Stella Maris. They just took the rock, existing rock that was on the beach and put it back up there. To me, it seemed like a waste of taxpayer money, only because it came down after the first storm, and then the past couple of storms after that, it's completely down again. We do have, it looks like Stella Maris and the Megan Lehner house that appears to be getting back into jeopardy again. So if you would just take a look at that again. I know money has to be transferred or whatever to do it again, but take a look at that situation down there. We've got people again concerned about losing their houses.
When you look at it,
I just can't see the border of the town, for any of us for that matter, to spend any money that won't last more than 2 or 3 months. Again, when they started out with the big boulders coming down from the landing, so to speak, at Mattapoisett, and they came down, I'm going to say 8 or 10 houses, I'm guessing now. They did a great job. They brought the big boulders in. It wouldn't handle a 100-year storm, I'm sure, but that seems to have stayed intact. It's beyond that, and you'll see it when you get down. That seems to have it's back into jeopardy again. And that was just a comment, that's all.
well, we'll have someone look at it. The assistant superintendent just said he would look at it.
Appreciate it. That's all we have there. And again, Rod, thank you for all your efforts as well. I know you've been in the background with Tom Reynolds, or maybe even the foreground. And if you just keep the communications open to us, just strictly for educational purpose, we would appreciate it.
Will do, Dave.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go right ahead.
Joe Pasevich, 25 Wilson Road. 3 things. On that last go around, I would agree that at Stella Maris, when they did work there, they used a totally different size stone from what was done south of that point. I don't know that the work is the private contractors that were at Stella Maris coordinated with the town, but they did use, let's say, refrigerator sized and microwave sized boulders. And south of there, they did bring in the big heavy stuff. So that's obvious, like an inflection or the beginning of a weak point. The second thing is, I hate to be a party pooper, but I do have to say I'm very disappointed to hear that the money appropriated at the override, under the $50 million override, we were told it was going to be matched. and that the 3.5 million would potentially be $12 million. And now I'm hearing it's not going to be matched. And despite the big turnout of Ocean Bluff people at that override meeting, it's being pigeonholed for Brent Rock. I'm just disappointed about that. I'm not looking for any answer to that. Maybe I see Rod raising his hand.
Okay, so there's the potential for match with the state with the application of phase 2. Okay, there's also match from the federal government for the damage that was done. So we are once we do the repairs, then we are eligible potentially to get 75% of that back from the federal government. So the work that we're doing in Brant Rock, down by Wade Street, and some of the revetments that as you come north that was damaged, that work, which we're working on right now in the design phase, is potentially reimbursed by the feds. They've seen it, they've quantified it, and it's just a matter of us putting the documents out, getting the permitting, and getting the documents out. So it looks like we're trying to get matches from the feds and from the state. You can't get both. What you get from the state, the feds won't reimburse. So, but we're trying to get it from the state as well. It's easier to work with the state than it is the feds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, you say it's been quantified, the work in Brant Rock's been quantified, and that there would be potentially a 75% of that total reimbursed? Correct. What's the quantification? What number did they give you?
Well, it depends on where you're looking. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the number is, but let's say Ocean Bluff, there was $6 million of damage in Ocean Bluff. That was quantified by our consultant.
I'm talking about Brant Rock. What was that quantified?
Yeah,
So
Brant Rock, I'm not sure. It's a couple of $1 million, something like that.
So potentially you get maybe $1.5 million back after the Brant Rock is done.
Right.
Okay. All right.
I would point out, Mr. Savage, that those numbers are subject to check because he does not have them in front of him.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. No, I'm not holding you guys to that at all.
Okay.
The third thing was that on that article at town meeting, I really feel a lot of anxiety about not going ahead with the design phase at this point, because I can see this thing now getting kicked down the road another 1.5 years or 2 years. I don't know if the DPW Mr. Chairman, is going to be making a presentation on that article and a recommendation. Is that something that's been discussed?
Yeah, we have discussed it. We've discussed it with the Ocean Bluff residents, and they seem comfortable with it. And they're looking for a safety net, which I think Rod addressed. So, we are on the same page.
I hope so. And as a follow-up to that, do you have a specific emergency action or an urgent action that's being planned for that money? Or is it just
the cost and mobilization of material?
Yeah,
we would not have a plan because where physically will the failure occur? It won't be across the entire length. It'll be the specific location where access may be readily done or not at all.
I understand. I didn't know if there was a pending urgent action, or you're just keeping that money as, like you may say, a safety net.
It is a safety.
It is for response.
Well, thank you for all that clarification. And again, thanks to Rod and the financial crew for keeping up on that. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, superintendent's report is not available.
Well, actually, I'm going to bring up the activities of the last week and a half.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
A lot of stuff we have done is getting ready out back, or we've got a catch basin crew out doing catch basin. Sweeper crew has been out doing some sweeping. Tree department's been out trimming trees, and a lot of graves coming in. Other than that,
Getting ready for the
potholes, we'll be doing potholes too, yes.
Fields are ramping up.
Yeah, fields, they've been working on the fields, fertilizing.
Up in the lawnmower.
That's what they're doing.
That's so true.
And I have a question for the deputy superintendents, plural, okay, which basically is, one of the things I've observed over the last several weeks, and it's probably been going on longer than that, but just haven't been out in the nicer weather when I've seen this stuff, is because Republic has gone over to the manual, the controlled arm dumping for the trash.
Yeah.
You know, the 50-pound limit obviously is no longer an issue because the guy is not physically picking up the buckets. And one of the things that I would like to have for the next meeting, not necessarily the one on the 26th, because that town meeting, we don't have a lot of time, but I would like to have a feel for what's happening with the pay-as-you-throw bag revenue, you know, which I suspect is taking a beating. And, you know, as I was watching gentleman down the street from me stuffing on Webster Street, stuffing two extra, well, big snow cone. Which is,
I have seen a lot of throw bags.
there are page and throw still out there, but I've seen a lot of barrels where the single barrels are packed to the max.
Yeah.
You know. So I'd be interested to get a report on that for how the page and throw revenue is going into sales.
We can do that. Yeah. Okay. Our next meeting is Monday, April 26th, 2021. That will be at the town meeting. The room will be as noted at the town meeting.
Jim, I called John to check, and it's gonna be in the gym again.
It will be
They're
in
having
the-
no rooms.
Yeah, okay, in the gym.
So we'll be along the
Yeah.
bleachers
Yeah,
again.
we'll Be along the bleachers. Thanks, Anne
Thank
Marie.
you.
I think the town meeting's at 7.
Seven.
I believe it's at 7 and usually
We
we go
usually meet
6:30.
at 6.
6:30.
6,
whatever works.
6:30, whatever you want.
Well, we'll have to see what we have for an agenda.
Exactly.
Good suggestion. Okay, and that's a good idea. I'm gonna make a motion that we adjourn, and we need a roll call vote.
I will second that motion.
The motion has been seconded. Any discussion, Bob?
No discussion.
Okay, no discussion. Mr. Bowen, would you poll the board?
Calling the board to adjourn this meeting. Clerk Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Carrion,
Aye.
Chairman Cusick.
Aye.
Thank you and have a good
Meeting
evening.
is
Good
adjourned.
evening, all.
Thank you, folks. Thanks,
you.
Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul. Take care.